Welcome to DOL Dignity of Labor KTP series, Know the Profession. And today we are deep diving about academia, and we are honored to have Sundar Sir with us, Associate Professor at Hong Kong University. Hi, Sundar Sir.
Thank you, Mahindra. Thank you so much for having me. And first of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity and congratulate you and your team for doing this wonderful series on different career paths. I'm sure it's going to be very useful and valuable for all your viewers. So all the very best and keep up the good work. And once again, thanks for inviting me.
Thanks a lot. So just to quick start, can we have a brief introduction of yours? Like, how did you start your journey, and how did you land into the job of, associate professor? Yeah.
Okay, so to briefly introduce me, I'm Sundar Natarajan. I did my undergraduate in production engineering from IIT Trichy. I'm also Mahindra's senior here, so we have a very good rapport right from our undergrad days. And then immediately after my BTech in production engineering, in my production engineering, I sort of specialized in industry engineering. During the last few semesters, I took courses that are more relevant to operations research and supply chain management, which naturally led me to a master's in operations research from IIT Madras. So immediately after my BTech, I pursued my master's in operations research. This is some master's by research. So I was working on a thesis, and and I was working on very interesting problems on a topic called behavioral operations management, where we were trying to combine human decision making and human behavioral nature with topics in operations management. How does human behavior affect the decisions that you make from an operations and from a strategies standpoint? So this is my first exposure to research as well. The thing naturally continued, which sort of motivated me to apply for PhD programs in different B schools around the world. I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to pursue my PhD from one of the top schools in the world, which is INSEAD. So immediately after my master, I joined my PhD program at INSEAD. I spent some time in the French campus, and I spent some time in the Singapore campus as well. And it's during the PhD program that I developed interest towards something called healthcare operations, where we study the typical operations problem that we find in the healthcare setting. So then academia sort of continued to interest me. And finally, I took up a position as an academician, as an assistant professor in a B school. I currently work as an assistant professor of operations management at the University of Hong Kong in the business school. This is my journey so far. But then if you ask me my interest towards academia, it starts right from my parents, in the sense both my parents are professors. So in a way, I have taken up the family business. So my father is also a business school professor. My mother is a professor of agricultural chemistry. Till date, my home is in the faculty quarters of a university in Tamil Nadu. So academia is like, I was born in academia right from my childhood. I grew up in lecture halls and chemistry laboratories where I grew up. So I was very familiar with how an academician's life would be in general, as I've seen my parents grow as an academicians as well. So that also played a very crucial part in my choice as being an academician.
Like that clearly defines, like, you have known the path prior, you have seen it from childhood, and you obviously chosen it. So like during this journey of getting into the B school and being a professor, which is on the other side from a student to professor, like, what was this primarily milestones that you had to take? Like, are there any positions or decisions which were very critical during your career path till B school? Like, you had any other choices that you want to make, or what were the toughest decisions, I would ask?
So the toughest decision is, I'll tell you, after your 4 years of undergrad, this master's by research is for another 2.5 years.
Correct.
And after that, PhD in a business school is for 5.5 years. So it's another 8 more years of schooling after your undergrad. If you put your undergrad together, it's 12 years of schooling. And during my master's at IIT Madras and my PhD at INSEAD as well, though I didn't have to pay any tuition fee because it's all through merit, and then you get a decent stipend to lead a proper single life. But still, when your friends graduate and then they get into a job immediately, then you might have a feeling that you are missing out on a lot, because they start earning much quickly. Some people just start earning after the undergrad. And then even well into your PhD, people are already settled, people are getting married, people are having kids, but still you will be studying. So people would say, you must love school, you are still studying. So, but the good part is that once you're done with your PhD, at least for the business school, you get a very good salary when you take up your assistant professorship job. So it's like this trade-off, right? You earn a good salary, very good salary, little later, but then for that, you'll have to be prepared, and you should be really, really passionate about research particularly in order to take up this career. Because if you are not a research oriented person, I mean, that there's no right or wrong.
Correct.
People want to be on the field, make decisions, see things in reality. That is one way to look at things. And then people can be like me, where they want to sit on a desk like this, take the data, crunch numbers, and work on very complex problems for a long time, right?
Correct.
Usually the problems that we solve for PhD, which is a part of our dissertation, is like the long-term problems that the companies are trying to solve. This is another set of things. But people who do consultancy and people do other things, they also try to solve the problems, but then they try to give short-term solutions, and then they try to improve it sequentially. So there are different things. But yeah, this is just a taste that I would say. But then the usual part is that you'll start earning late, and you should be ready for it. That was the difficult choice for me, I would say. That was the difficult part for me.
That is like, in various career paths, we happen to have this tendency to, see others and compare. And then how do I motivate myself? So that is there. So like, how was your recruitment process that has happened when you opted or, applied for associate professor in academy?
Okay, so this is very different in different countries. But then if you look at the hiring in the top schools, and when I say top business schools, I'm talking about the schools that are probably in the top 50 to 60 in the Financial Times rankings. Those are the top business schools in the world. Then they have a sort of formal process already well defined. For example, you can do your PhD in B school in any domain, whether it can be operations and statistics like me, or it can be like marketing or strategy or entrepreneurship or organizational behavior. All these things, there is a well defined process. The process is what we call as a job market, where the first step is you would be at the final year of your PhD, ideally the fifth year. You would go and present your work in one of the famous conferences that every field has. For example, for operations management, there is Informs annual meeting. In that Informs annual meeting, there will be a first round of interview. It's more like a coffee chat. Right? They call it a first round of interview. It's an informal coffee chat where you have to apply for different B schools. There will be an opening application process. And if the B schools like your profile, they'll invite you for this coffee chat. Because this is very convenient, right? Everyone would be attending this conference. Usually the conference happens in the United States. Both the schools and the applicants will be there.
Yes.
And they'll have a coffee chat like this. They will ask, what are your teaching interests? What are your research interests? What's in your research pipeline? What are you working on? Kind of very informal questions. Then they will go back. And then if they really like your profile, they will invite you to their business school for a detailed research presentation, which is what we call as a flyout or job talk. There you, in detail, present your research work for 90 minutes or 60 minutes, depending on the school. And then every faculty there would vote on whether this person is a right fit for the school. Is he or she bringing diversity to the school? And other aspects like what courses the person can additionally teach. Nowadays in business schools, they are opening a lot of master's program, like masters in business analytics, masters in finance, masters in supply chain, apart from MBAs. These master's programs are gaining more traction.
More traction, yes.
So exactly. So they'll see what value this PhD student can bring in. And if the school likes you, they will extend you an offer. And you can have multiple offers. The schools will extend offers to multiple people, just like a PhD admission or an MBA admission process. The same thing happens. And then you get selected. This is typically the process.
Nice. So, like when we discuss about offers and this process, how long does this generally goes? Like, are there any limitations or the season-wise selection process?
It's a very good question. So again, it's a very long process. As I told you, you would ideally start applying for operations management. At least this is the timeline. You submit your application package. When I mean an application package, it's your teaching statement, it's your research statement, it's your cover letter, your letter of recommendation. All these things usually you submit to the colleges, which has an opening in the month of August or early September. And then this Informs annual meeting, which I mentioned, which is the informal coffee chat at the first round, happens in October. And then they go back and then they give these flyouts in throughout November, December, January, February, and even until March, because one candidate can have multiple offers.
Through that.
And all these things happen. So there are several rounds, and usually things get settled in March. So it starts in August. And then it ends somewhere in the end of February or early March. This is usually the timeline.
It's entirely like how we generally have it in an undergrad. All your fourth year is dedicated to placements. Not ideally, but then here it will be like your last year of PhD is totally you'll have your deadline of project as well, and then your next path for the career as well.
Absolutely. And you have to submit your thesis as well. So
Yeah, that is what. Yeah, that which is the major thing.
which is
First
the major
priority.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Because if you get a job and then you don't submit your thesis and thesis fails, then it's going to be a big embarrassment. So
Yeah,
yes.
that is that. Yeah. So then I have one more question. Like when you said your teaching interest and your project interest, right? So assume you are working in operations domain in your thesis. Do you also prefer to have your teaching interest in, like, did you choose healthcare or how did you end up into this option?
So teaching and research usually sort of slightly differs in the sense that your research interest, usually you'll have to define it within the first 1.5 years of your PhD. So when you join a PhD program, the first 1.5 or even 2 years is all about coursework, right? Because the first 2 years of surviving a PhD program is completely a different story, because you'll have different coursework, and then there will be something called comprehensive evaluation or qualifiers at the end of first year and second year. And if we do not qualify it, then they'll give you a master's and they'll send you out. So qualifying for a PhD is completely different. Only at the end of your qualifying examination, you will become a candidate. Before that, you will just be a student. So it is this 2 years while you're taking course, you'll be interacting with a lot of professors. And then the professors usually during these PhD courses will discuss a lot of papers. We will discuss a lot of their own research interests. And if something interests you, you just approach the professors. You can approach multiple professors. And then you start working on small projects, in the sense that you will have to submit a summer paper by the end of first year. You will have something called a second year paper that you have to submit by the end of the second year. These are some preliminary research projects. And that is how we would develop your topics for dissertation or your research interest. And I had a course on healthcare operations. And I really liked some of the topics and challenges. It was unlike the traditional operations that we have in the manufacturing setup or in other service setups. That interested me. That's how I pursued the broad field of healthcare operations. But when it comes to teaching, you're going to teach mostly as an assistant professor. You're going to teach undergraduates, or you're going to teach the master's student. Straight away, you may not teach the MBAs. After a few years, you might teach the MBAs. But that, I think you should be prepared to teach any course that's being offered, whether it is basic operations management, basic supply chain management, or basic decision and risk analysis that's offered for the undergraduates. So since you have a PhD, you will be equipped to handle any of these courses. And depending on the school and what kind of vacancies there in the school, you should be prepared to teach any of these subjects. But later on in your life, as you transform to an associate professor, maybe you can design your own course on healthcare operations, a PhD course on healthcare operations, and then you can start offering it. Usually this is how things work.
That's nice. Like you first plug and play and then you make your own course later on. That's great.
Usually it's like this, right? You start with undergrads or undergrads and masters, slowly go into MBA, then probably PhD courses as well. This is how it usually builds up.
That's nice. So like when you said about, in your initial toughest decision, like you will earn later. So what is the average compensation that, generally associate professors get in any of the top B schools?
Okay, this is again a very, this question, again, the answer to this question varies from country to country.
Correct.
And it also varies from, because for example, you take European countries, they say we give you a lot of social security, free healthcare, free. So the salary is going to be less. But if you take countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, and the US, there again, the cost of living is high, the taxation is high, but then they don't give, the salary is also high. This kind of a trade-offs will always be there. So the answer is, it depends. But usually what happens is that if you look at these top B schools, the top FT ranking, for Financial Times ranking, then maybe all of them try to match the salaries that the US schools are giving. So that salary can be anywhere starting from $180,000 or upwards. And this upwards usually depend on what kind of subjects that you teach. Where do you have your PhD from, the cost of living in that area. So there are a factor of things that usually decide how much more you get. But a reasonable figure should be somewhere between $170,000 to $180,000 per annum, which is the average, I would say, starting salary for an assistant professor in the FT business school, top 50 business schools in FT ranking.
Agreed. So that's like a very great number, I would say. Nice. And it matches your initial hypothesis of, you aim for your research and then you get a good amount of results later. That's great. So if we go into your day in, day out, like you as an associate professor of operations manager, how does your day in, day out starts? Like when do you start? When do you end? What are the prime responsibilities that you should you have in your plate?
Again, very important question, but that also brings to the plus and minus of this job, right?
Correct,
the good part about academia is that there is no direct boss over you to give you any So the freedom that you get is basically one of the perks of being in academia. But that's also the problem, because since nobody is there, you need a lot of motivation to work on your research projects and everything. Because as I told you, we have something called a tenure clock. For being assistant professors in these schools, in business school, top business schools, in the first 5 to 6 years, you are expected to have certain number of publications in the top journals in your field.
Okay.
Right? So suddenly at the end of 5th year and 6th year, you'll have to submit your package, which is basically the number of publications that you have, the teaching feedback that the student gives, all these things, right? So one fine day, you have to submit everything, and then they will take a decision as to whether to keep you in the job or not to keep you in the job. But until then, there is no supervision. You don't have to, basically, there's no manager for you. Of course, you report to the director or the dean, but that's only for things like leave applications and your teachings and
all the admin related.
The admin stuff. So that's the plus and that's the minus as well. So if you look at my schedule in general, I try to keep all my teachings. I teach 2 courses. I teach decision and risk analysis for the undergrads. I also teach business simulation for the master's student. I try to put them both the courses in the same semester. That is during the event semester, I try to teach both the courses. And the other semester, usually I have for my research. That's only for my, so I can focus on my publication.
Correct. That's nice.
So if I'm teaching, the day will be like whenever if there is a class, I have to be in the class, and that's how it works. But if you don't have class, then usually again in these top B schools, you're not required to basically come to office or report anything. That usually most of the B schools at least.
Okay.
Again, it vary depending on the country, but most of the B schools they don't check. You are expected to just carry out your research. So different people will have different styles. For example, if people are working with partners in the US, so I have some of my co-authors in the US. Then I'll prefer to work in the night time.
Yeah, that is there. Yes.
So
time zone calculations.
Time zone things are there. Usually I have one of my advisors is from the University of Rochester. So I try to work with him. So I try to have most of my research work between 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. kind of thing.
Yeah.
But on the other day, usually I come to office by 10 a.m. and I leave office by 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the night.
Okay.
If there is a class, I will go teach in between and come.
True.
But
yeah. So kind of, if you have to summarize, like you kind of have the work-life balance rather than the rest of other professions.
Absolutely.
That is so clear. Correct.
Yeah.
And you have the freedom to pursue your research as per your pace rather than someone nagging on you like, okay, so that I need results, man.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That is there. Like you have more amount
of... That will come suddenly on one day.
Yeah,
but
that's like
a regular check, right?
Yeah, correct. That's like, you never know when it will come, but you will just be prepared because you'll have a plan. Yeah, that is there.
Absolutely.
Okay. So like you have kind of covered the next question, like what motivates you for this job. But then if you have to, mention top 3 pointers that you have or that motivates you daily to, go teach new students or, solve the problem, which is there from so much long time, like as some other profession, like consultants do generally solve the problem in 6 weeks and they give recommendations to clients and then it's project done. But for you, it's like elongated one, right? How do you motivate yourself and what makes you to do that?
So first thing, I love teaching. So again, I've sat through enough classes as a kid. So I love teaching. That motivates me to come up with innovative methods of teaching and then going to the class daily, facing undergrad students, master students, and everything. So I'm very passionate about teaching. And also the university that I work in is in the top 5 in Asia and it's in the top 30 in the world. So you get some of the best minds in the class. And trust me, they are just like the premier schools in India, they're very inquisitive and they ask a lot of very pertinent questions. And most importantly, since we are in this Hong Kong and I'm in Hong Kong and then they have access to different companies in China, they always try to bring some of the challenging problems that they were working during their time in industry. And they were trying, how can we solve this problem? What tools that I'm using here can be used there as well.
Yeah.
So this sort of interests me. Sometimes I don't have answers to their questions in the class and I will always get back to them by saying this is a very interesting question, and then I used to think and get back to them. This process of learning from both sides, going back and forth, sort of helps me a lot, and then I'm very passionate about it. When it comes to research, again, as you rightly mentioned, these are the problems that we work on are usually policy related problems or problems that require a long-term solution. Usually the companies would come to business school professors with the most challenging problem that their in-house R&D department cannot solve.
Yes,
exactly. And when they come to us, it's obviously a long-term problem, right? When they come to us, usually the professor would ask a PhD student to look at it. And that essentially forms a part of the PhD student's dissertation or thesis.
Yes.
So it goes for 3 to 4 years or even 5 years, and then we give them solution. But nowadays things are changing. For example, it's not just theoretical, right? The company comes to the professor with a problem, and then the professor and his student works on this. They have a solution, they implement it in the field immediately. They call it a field experiment, right? And then they see that whatever they found out and whatever results that they have in the field is like different. There is a discrepancy. Then the process is like a completely iterative process, right? Then they go back to the model, they correct it, and then once again they do a field experiment and see if things are matching. So again, this process is long term, but it's very sort of satisfying in nature, because you really see your solution working in the field, and then it gives you that improvement that you are looking for. And
it's like you get a lifetime, real-time feedback of what and all implementations that you have, and you'll have scope of improvement wherever there is necessary, and then you'll have the next level of suggestions or processes that you have to develop in the coming cases.
Absolutely. And nowadays, for example, for publishing in some of the top management journals also, they need validation, right? So you just can't write a theory paper or come up with a math model and say, this is the gospel of truth, you have to accept it. No, they say, okay, fine. Well, what happens? So you have to either, for example, I work on healthcare. So they say, okay, run me a simulation and show how it is working. Or can you implement it on the field in collaboration with some hospital and then see that it has actually improved on the field, kind of a thing. So the academia is also sort of, developing this attitude that whatever we are doing should have managerial implications and impact on the field. So that is one of the factors that drives me to look on these complex problems and then solve it as a part of your research journey.
It's like lifelong learning.
Yes, you have to keep updating yourself, because there are tools that are coming up on the day-to-day basis. Machine learning, reinforcement learning, all these things are coming up. So you just can't be comfortable with certain tools. You have to keep updating yourself, especially when you're an operations person. So this lifelong journey is something that is very satisfying as well.
So if someone is really wanting to become an academician, so what are the primary skill sets that one should have or possess within themselves or to acquire to ensure that they have a bright future in the coming days?
Good. So first thing I would say is patience, in the sense that in academia, you're going to keep failing. So it's not that people who have succeeded have never had failure at all. They are in fact failures on a day-to-day basis, whether it's their publication or teaching feedback, or you give a research seminar, the kind of feedback that you get. So it's your ability to stand up every time you fall. So if you have that right attitude that you're going to stand up every time you fall, then that sort of perseverance is what is really required in academia. That's number one, I would say. Second thing, as I told you, this is academia as a career. It's going to be slightly during the PhD and the initial part of your career, but it's going to be rewarding at the end. It has its own plus and minus, the work-life balance, the independence to work on problems that you like. These are something that you get. But again, you have to sacrifice things like income in early stages of your life, even I would say marriage, right? For example, the stipend that you get during your PhD and master's, it's going to be enough to take care of yourself. But if you have a family, your wife and kids, then your partner should be working and your partner should support
complementing you. Yes, correct.
Absolutely. So those kind of decisions are there. So that if you're ready to endure that as well, then again, academia is definitely an option for you. And in general, I would say just like in a corporate life, you're going to have a relationship with your advisor. You need to manage your relationship with your PhD advisor or guide. And then you're going to have fellow PhD students. It's going to be a small cohort, right? Every year there'll be one or two students. You'll not have many colleagues. So you should be ready to be in sacrifice your social life also a little bit, right? You will not have many people to work. So it's just going to be 5 or 10 people in your cohort. So you're going to see the same faces again and again, and they'll also be working on different projects. There's not coordination. So a little bit sacrifice on your social life as well. So these are some things to consider. And in general, if you love that sort of intellectual freedom to work on the problems that you like, it comes with these small costs. But if that interests you, then academia is for you.
So then the candidate or the person should be more like an individual contributor rather than, I'll get along. I need a team to get things done types, right?
Absolutely. So there's nobody to check on. Even during your PhD, you're not going to meet your advisor every day, right? You have to own your project and you have to own your research that you're doing. And then you have to basically take all the efforts to publish it in a top journal. So, and even after becoming an assistant professor, it's even more challenging, right? At least your advisor was there previously, and now there's nobody. So you have to
Yeah.
own all your projects, you have to manage it, you have to get your PhD students, you have to get interns, research associates, you have to get fundings if you want.
Yes,
You
that
have
is
to
it.
talk to companies and become collaborative to conduct those field experiments or get data. So all these things should be self-driven.
And then
So
finally, you should guide the rest folks who are joining in your team.
exactly,
And then where
exactly.
you
So
will be,
I
you will
mean,
be an advisor for someone. Correct.
absolutely. That 1 or 2 years back, you were a student and the advisor was guiding you, and now suddenly, in a couple of years, you might have to deal with a PhD student who's joining, a master student or a PhD student who's
Correct.
joining. So this things turn quickly, at least when you transition from PhD to academia. I mean,
Nice.
the assistant professorship.
Yes. So, like, how does your 5 to 10 years journey will look like? Like, maybe as a designation or yeah.
Sure. Again, in business school and in most of the departments in academia, this is very standard. You start as an assistant professor, and then this is where your tenure after 5 to 6 years, depending on the school, there is something called tenure. This tenure basically means your job becomes permanent. When you get your tenure, you usually become an associate professor. When you become an associate professor, then you're good. Nobody can kick you out, but your job is permanent. But then when you become an associate professor, your responsibilities will increase. In fact, you will have to teach a little bit more. Then you will get administration work as well. Probably you will become the associate dean of some program, or you have to take care of the undergrads. All these things will increase. Again, but that's just the second step, right? Then after associate professorship, if you do well on these 3 domains, research, teaching, and administration, you can apply for the next step, which is the final position, is your full-term professorship. So assistant professor, associate professor, and then a full-term professor. And after the full-term, you become a full-term professor, you have to continue working like that. Then probably you'll take top administrative positions, like you'll become the dean, or you'll become the director, or you'll have to take care of the some executive education program, the MBA program, all these things. So this is how career is. So the first 6 years for associate professor, maybe another 6 to 8 years for the full professorship, and then it's up to you. This is the ladder in academia.
Yeah, ladder and trajectory.
Yeah.
Whatever we call. So, like, I have this one curious question. Like, during, like, I did my MBA during COVID, partial COVID and partial campus. So, you will be teaching students who have seen that phase. So, according to you, how does this specific profession will look like in coming days? Like, even now, we personally feel like, in-person teaching is very effective, but then not everyone will have an access to that. So how does that ratio or equilibrium going to be for this profession?
So, I mean, already business schools have realized this, because people have understood that it's very easy to give them good quality education through online modes. So some schools have done it, and some schools have even mastered it. So people are coming up with programs, and they're also equipping all the professors to deal with online classes, starting from the best B schools in the world. Some of them are or have started to offer, online MBAs as well. But if you personally ask me, for a course like business education, again, you have courses like operations management, statistics, that can be taught online very easily, where you're going to do some derivations and other things. But then if you have case studies, if you're going to interact with take a OB course or a strategy course, where then definitely technology still has that small thing where, okay, even that is bridged by those breakout rooms in Zoom, but I still don't know how effectively the discussions happen using that. So I will not say it is a perfect substitute for
in-person teaching,
in-person learning, especially for business education, but I would say it's getting there. And as I said, I mean, in general, people are also moving a little bit away, and they've started specializing in business domain. Instead of getting an MBA, people want to look at MSc in finance, MSc in supply chains, MSc in data analytics. Then it makes things a little more easier to provide it online. But I would say in general, in the next 5 to 6 years, with other things like ChatGPT and other coming in, we are asked to make foolproof, fail-safe question papers that people are not able to crack. But online education is going to be an important part of business school program development, and already the schools have started discussing it. So we can expect things to move in that direction in the future, where both modes will exist. Like the business schools will offer both for
courses.
students. And that's the direction that we're heading towards.
However, you have answered my next question about creating question papers which are foolproof and all, because these days we happen to see several students utilizing the technology in, I won't say wrong way, but maybe a smart way from student side. Like,
so now what we are what the business school professors and the management is discussing is instead of actively trying to prevent students from using it, can you come up with a curriculum that actually says, okay, you know what, go ahead and use ChatGPT. It's fine as long as you get your answers correct. But I also want you to think during that process, kind of a hybrid. And also we have the other, the tools that which finds whether you have used, when you write an essay type of a question, there are AI tools which will find out whether you have used these.
You have got it from somewhere. How much percentage of match has been there?
Exactly.
Correct.
So those software also, we have turned it. I mean, when we were doing PhD and other, we already had done it in, right? These software can do it. But now other AI tools are also coming up. So I guess it shouldn't be a problem. We are in the phase of moving towards equilibrium, and I think we'll reach there.
That's like both the sides of AI tools are increasing. We don't know which one will be used more or utilized by students or faculty. That's great. So just on a lighter note, so what would be the craziest thing that you have experienced in this profession?
Nothing comes to my mind on the top, but let me think. That's a good question.
Sure.
Frankly speaking, I haven't found out anything that is crazy. But what will happen is one thing that I usually see even among master's students is that for their group projects, whenever it's done, they keep coming to me and complaining that I cannot work with this person. I'm not very compatible with this person. I say, come on, I can understand if school students or undergraduates are doing it.
Correct.
But the worst thing that you have to experience as a professor or as a PhD student is when you evaluate your papers and submit, the students are going to come and they're going to give you crazy answers, justifying that what they've written, right? You give them the marking scheme, you tell them that, you know what, this is like graded on a curve, so I've uniformly graded it, it's not going to affect your grade. No, they're going to fight with you for that half a mark or 1 mark, right?
That is that.
So you do get some crazy experiences like that, and then you have to, call your higher official or your professor and tell them that, this happened, what can we do? These are the crazy things that you see, but then in general, it's
nice. Like those things happen to have from undergrad to postgrad. We never expected that happens in a master's as well. Yeah, that is
exactly.
Correct. Yeah.
So speaking of crazy experience, this is also my first teaching experience as a full-time academician, right?
Correct.
So I taught undergraduates the course, and then a few of them, 1 or 2 of them, had the exact same medical issue right before the examination. And then tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock is the exam. Some of them complain about it just at 9 p.m. the previous day. Look at the reason, they all have the same reason. So sometimes I send an email saying that, are you all living next to each other and you're all getting the same medical condition? So it's like here, if you have a medical condition, obviously you can ask the professor for an extension, or you can ask them to shift the percentage of grade to the other component of your grading and ask for a supplementary exam. So they all, since I teach a course that is slightly heavy on the math side, so they all get the same issue right in.
Then you might have replied that you are the same set of sample that is really required to solve this problem.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I used to ask them in the class, and they all used to smile and said, "Yes, professor, we had this issue." I used to say, "Come on, both of us know it's not true, but then fine, I'll give you that."
Yeah, nice. So, like you have told the multiple minuses that one would have during the career path to becoming an associate professor or at B school. But what is that one biggest disadvantage that you feel, or is there anything in this profession as such?
So in this profession, the biggest disadvantage or the biggest barrier, I would say, is like attrition, in the sense that people who join PhD program will drop out of the PhD program at any stage. Right? The first 1.5 years, where the moment you get to know about how life in academia is, some people would feel, you know what, I'm a better fit in the industry, and then they'll leave. Even if they are interested, sometimes the academia can be punishing, because if you don't perform very well in the qualifying exams, they can kick you out. That is a big problem. You might have planned everything and you might have left your career and come for this, and then you fail the qualifying examination, then it's tough. Then what happens is everything can go well, and then you'll start working on a topic that you find is very interesting. But in the end of 3rd year or in the end of 4th year, you will find that this is not going anywhere. I mean, research is all about that. You'll always hit dead ends. And then when you hit on a dead end, you should sort of have the guts to drop that project, kill the project and go for different ones. But unfortunately, if it happens during your PhD,
Then
when you're new to research, then it's very disheartening, right?
yeah.
So again, that problem is there. So this can happen to you at any point in time, or you might lose interest on the project at any point in time. At that time, going back to an industry or finding a new job can be very difficult. And trust me, in academia, especially in the top business schools, this happens sort of very frequently. If 10 people get admitted to PhD program across different departments, you will see 50% dropout.
Okay.
And that rate is very high in the best PhD programs in the world. So that is something that people should keep in mind, that they should have an open mind about this attrition or this failure happening at any point.
Okay. Then another question is, like, generally people or professors at B school, the path that you have come is one. The second is people who have high amount of experience in industry will also come as, not as a professor, I would say they come as a associate or, supporting staff who will just teach about specific topics, right? But they end up, after coming into this profession and they like the profession, they kind of switch, right? So how frequently does this happen in top B schools? Like people who have high amount of experience in specific sector and come back?
That we call as professors of practice or professor of practice. The title is given to them.
Okay.
For them, the recruitment doesn't there is no recruitment process actually. What happens is that a professor in the proper tenure scheme usually stumbles across such people during conferences or meeting, and then they find that their expertise is too good. For example, but still, when it comes to academia, again, we work on a lot of problems, but then trust me, we don't know what the exact problems are in industry. There is a saying that industry is always 6 to 10 years ahead of the academia, because they see things on the field.
Yeah, ground
they
reality.
Experience problems on the field. There are white papers and there are HBR articles or kind of Wall Street Journal articles that come up with that problem, and then few years later an academician picks it up and then tries to solve it. So industry is the first probably the first front that witnesses the problem, that experiences the problem, right?
That's the face of it.
Exactly. Now the good part is, especially with the business schools, is it's trying to bridge this gap between academia and industry by bringing on more professors of practice or these experts who can come and teach this particular course. For example, for a long time at INSEAD, I mean, not at INSEAD, in another business school, there was nobody to teach a course on blockchain and cryptocurrency because they didn't have an expert who could do that. Correct. So for a very long time, we invited the business school invited experts to teach a course on that, because for a top MBA program, a course on that was absolutely necessary. Without that, an elective had to be offered, but they didn't have anyone inside. Yeah. So this happens, but then they usually are hired on by the professors based on their expertise. There is no proper channel for hiring these professors of practice.
Okay. So like in this journey to an associate professor at B school, so you said after undergrad, there is around 12 years of schooling again.
8 years, right?
8 years of schooling.
So the undergrad's 12 years, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Total 12 years of schooling. So you would be settling near around 27, 28 of your age if you start really early.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's the caveat. Yes.
Yeah. If you start really early to aim for this, then the most idealistic age would be 27, 28. So you would be growing in your career like maybe 10, 15 years. So when compared to other professions, you will have a limited amount of time that is available for you. So even then, do you wish to retire early by any chance?
That depends, in the sense that if you have made enough money, then yes. But how do you make enough money? So when it comes to B school professor, this is totally irrelevant for assistant professors like me. But when people become associate professors, or when they establish their names for a particular field, then what happens is they also get to have consultancy opportunities, correct, which is an additional source of income for them. Yeah. So, and also you can do some extra teaching over and top of your allocated load to gain some extra money. Okay. And when you teach other programs, in the sense that not just MBAs and masters, when you start teaching executive MBAs or some tailor-made short-term programs for the industry, then you can get to make some additional money. Okay. So using these extra channels, when you make enough money, then that's your decision. But usually I haven't seen many people retire before their retirement age. They try to, in fact, people work even after that, right?
Yeah, because
65 is the official age for retirement, at least in Hong Kong. But I've seen B school professors take up additional responsibilities and, becoming emeritus professors or doing consulting opportunities even after that.
yeah,
So
that's because you have been habituated to follow something for
exactly.
ages, and then you don't want to stop on one day, just like that. Okay.
And in fact, many professors have told me this, right? I know one professor who told me, I understand this entire subject and the matter in it only at the age of 70. Only now
Okay.
that I'm fully understanding it, after teaching it for several years, after doing research repeatedly, after talking with industry people again and again and again, now my head has a very clear understanding of what goes in where. And it has taken me around 20-25 years or my entire service to understand this.
Correct.
And they don't want to leave it at that point of time. They want to do more.
Yeah. Yes, that is like as you have more eagerness to learn and influence more students into that specific sector or solve bigger problems, you will obviously have that eagerness to or hunger, I would say, to learn more. Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Because you have seen multiple projects where you couldn't complete or you wanted to complete within the same specific timeline. Yeah, I
And
really
also more
understand that.
opportunities will come to you that time,
Correct.
right? Because you
Yes.
have established a name for yourself in the field and
Yeah.
you are well known in that field. And then different opportunities start coming your way, starting from the government sides to different industry sides to organization side. Different opportunities will come your way only at that time of your retirement,
Correct.
where you have established a name for yourself.
The brand name builds bigger.
Yes.
Okay. So then one last thing, like what is that advice or suggestion or anything you can take it as for all the upcoming aspirants who really want to become or add to the society of professors at B schools primarily?
So again, I think I'm too young to give such a broad advice.
No, but then even
based on
the profession that or the point of career you are in is very dreamful for several other viewers who are watching this. So that's why.
So for them, I would just say this, right? Academia, as I mentioned, is like only for specific set of people who have that mindset of, who have that passion for teaching and passion for research. When I say research, it's this long-term complex problem solving. And this, again, there is no right or wrong thing, right? In the sense that people can go to industry, people can go to academia, people can I have seen people shifting from either side, right? After being in academia for some time, they get bored. They think I don't do anything, which is very impactful. So I need to go to the industry. And I've also seen people who are in the industry for 10 years. And once they are settled, they have 2 kids and married and all, they come back to academia, do their PhD, and then get settled in an academic job. So things can work both ways. So all I would say is if you, for a young aspirants, if you have aspirations of becoming an academician, I would say start early. Try enrolling yourself in a research master's program, because that research master's program is going to give you a taste of how academia is going to be like.
Okay.
Then if you really like it, working with a professor, working on long-term complex problem, all these things, if you have a knack for it, continue with your PhD and then get into academia. If you think, oh, no, I really want to be on the field working on impactful project which has immediate results that I want to see, then that's also a very good thing. Then you can always move back to this. But I will say start a little bit early. Is what I would say. Right after your undergrad, apply for a research master's program. Definitely work with a prof in a laboratory. By a laboratory, I mean a business lab, or it can be anything else as well. And then get a knack for research and then take decisions a little bit early. This is one thing. Second thing, academia is going to have a lot of failures for everyone, right? You will have research projects and you're going to keep hitting dead ends. When you hit those dead ends, you should pick yourself up and immediately start working on other problems. And you should have that mindset and you should be highly motivated, because there is really no top your boss or someone to, pull you up every time.
Yes.
So when you think that you have all these qualifications, then I would definitely say academia is a very fruitful or a very nice career path to have. Yes, people should definitely try it out.
Yes. Thanks a lot. And it's a very great discussion having with you, Sundarji, because it's a long time, but then it's a very fruitful discussion, and we got quite a good amount of insights starting from how to choose a master's, PhD, becoming a professor. Thanks a lot, and it's great to have you here in DOL.
By the way, if I can just add one thing again, when usually I get questions on this, right? When people want to apply for research masters and PhD masters, I would say again, just like our job market, that's also a process in itself. So again, when you decide that you're going to do a research master's or a PhD, filter the institutes that fits your need.
Interest. Yeah.
Write to all the professors there, right?
Okay.
Again, if you write to 10 professors, 8 of them will not reply to you, but that again should not dishearten you, right? 2 of them will reply, definitely. So that's how they will know that, okay, such and such a candidate is there and they want that person is trying for academia, their fit is right, and all these things. So shortlist the institutes that you want to apply for your PhD or master's, write to the professors you want to work with, get an idea of what is the topic that you are interested in well before, get an idea of the kind of research that the professors are doing. You don't have to read research papers for that, right? You can just click on the abstract of some of the recent research works that the professors are doing and read the abstract alone to understand this. And then basically you will find the right advisor for you. So this is something that I really wanted to tell for aspirants. And more importantly, if somebody is really interested in having a business school academia as their option, do not hesitate to reach out to people like me in LinkedIn or through other means and ask them. It need not be about the technical details as well, right? You can also write about, what, I'm considering this career option, but I have these and these reservations. Would you be interested in a 10 to 15 minute Zoom call with me?
Correct.
And then you can always get a chat. Again, the response rate is going to be low, but definitely, because when I was applying for PhD, I wish I had someone to tell this entire roadmap for me. Unfortunately, I learned the roadmap the hard way by, but it turned out well for me. Turned out good for me. But it's always have to. But then you are bridging the gap by conducting these wonderful interviews.
Yeah,
so
that's there. Yes,
that's great.
Thanks a lot for all the viewers who have watched this episode of DOL. We would love to hear your feedback through comments. Also, please like, share, and subscribe to DOL. If you have any further queries, please reach out to us through email, LinkedIn, or TalkMate. We have attached the links below in the description. Thanks a lot.